It's now time to introduce our first speaker for this evening, Aparna Piramal Raje. She is an author, columnist, and a thought leader on business, design, and workplaces. Her first book, Working Out of the Box, which has 40 stories of leading CEOs, was published in 2015. The book features the heads of organizations and looks at leadership through the lens of workplaces and work styles. Aparna has earlier contributed to the UK's Financial Times Weekend, a leading global publication. She is a visiting faculty member and on the board of studies at the Anant National University, dedicated to the study of the built environment in Ahmedabad. An advisor to the Wonder Girls movement to enable adolescents to have the access to the role models, Aparna is committed to supporting her gender equity and has previously led the professional Women's Network. She is also an advisor to Talk to Me, a mental health NGO, and a member of Asia Gender Network. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Aparna by typing the word welcome in the chat box. Over to you, Aparna.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So it looks like it's been a really interesting event already, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the other winners. So I'll be talking about safe and inclusive workplace design. We've, of course, heard a lot about safety and inclusivity already, but I really want to focus on the workplace design part of it, because that's what I've been doing for many years. Just a little bit, this was a book that came out about in 2015, where I've been interviewing CEOs and looking for the connection between workplaces and work styles. I'll just play a very short video clip. So I talked to all these CEOs about their workspaces and work styles, and what did we discover after that? Was really that the tangible investments that you as the HR heads and CEOs and senior CXOs are making have obviously been very closely correlated with the work styles that CEOs are adopting. And the whole idea of this is to align them to enhance assets, right? That is what any business wants to do in its business. But which assets? One of them, which is the most important intangible asset of all, is the whole idea of organizational capital. And this really means aligning this pentagon of 5 important elements that I see that I've outlined here. And what does that mean by that alignment? So let's say if you take an idea of saying that employees should own the way they work. This was one of the HR policies that I came across from an organization that I visited. So they had aligned all of these 5 elements around that policy. So the workplaces, for example, gave the employees enough freedom to choose the kind of setting that they wanted to work in. The technological infrastructure in terms of laptops, in terms of apps, gave them a lot of flexibility. The workplace practices, which meant that the kind of conversations that employers and managers and employees were having with each other always also gave employees some flexibility in the way that they worked. And this was all pre-COVID. And of course, the culture and the values in terms of the trust that existed in the organization, in terms of institutionalized trust, was also aligned. So when we actually say that we want to be diverse or inclusive, we actually have to align all of these. And we look at the workplace design part. So I met all these CEOs. The question was really, how many of these CEOs were really on their own talking about diversity and inclusivity and safety in the workplace, and how did that reflect in the design? So I have to tell you, actually, there were not as many as I would have liked, but I did come across some really interesting examples. This is Hardika Shah. She is the CEO and founder of Kinara Capital, which is a socially inclusive NBFC based in Bangalore. They make small loans of just a few lakh rupees to MSMEs. And as you can see, she has the word inclusive written on the walls, and she actually walks the talk. So her father is visually impaired, and he actually went on to become a blind professor in India and in the US, and had a very productive life. And that's inspired her to actually have inclusivity in the workplace. As she specifies, we do not discriminate on the basis of gender, religion, and I love the way she says, or any earthly description whatsoever. And she says that being a CEO means that she can build a women majority management team. She pushes for inclusion of the disabled in the workplace, whether that's visually impaired, hearing impaired, or wheelchair user. She has a head of HR who has strict zero harassment and posh policies. And the only way it works, it starts at the top. So when it comes to the design of the workplace, what does that mean? It means that there are enough washrooms for women, which is always a problem. It means there is wheelchair access for people. It means there's technology for the visually impaired. It means putting all of these facilities into the workplace that reflect these policies. Similarly, right now, a big issue is the whole psychological safety of COVID. And I put this meme up because I think all of us would understand what it means to be going back to work and the fears and anxieties associated with it. And many of the senior HR folk on this call would also appreciate the concerns of their team members. So I came across a very interesting organization. This is Harappa. It's an edtech company based in Delhi. And this is Shreyasi Singh, who's the founder and CEO. And they were actually, luckily enough, moving into a new office just when COVID happened. So they were able to adapt the space to get suited for COVID protocols. And these are some of the things that they did. They paid a lot of attention to ventilation. So they have air purifiers everywhere. They have these new technology called ionizers to reduce the spread of airborne contaminants. They have exhaust fans to help in circulation. They have openable windows, and they have generally very good ventilation. I even got an indoor air quality expert in the US to assess what they were doing, and they came back and they said that they've really made a really good effort in making sure that the air quality is very healthy. They also realized that they would need a lot more meeting rooms. So they have, apart from the regular meeting rooms that they already had, they put in an extra floor of meeting rooms with many video conferencing facilities. So out of their 150-person workforce, as many as 50 can be accommodated in meeting rooms at any given point in time, because they realize that people would be coming into the office more to meet rather than to do solo work. So this is how you can, make your office safer. And of course, Shreyasi recognizes that there is that tension between the CEOs and younger people, especially who do not want to necessarily come back to the office. And so she says that, while individuals have preferences, organizations should also have preferences, and how we reconcile these preferences is really where this tango and the dance and the landmines are. And just as employees in the company are individuals, they're also corporate citizens. And so we have these conversations internally. So perhaps it's no surprise that both of these interesting leaders, when it comes to safety and inclusivity, are women. I leave that to you to draw a conclusion. The question is now, what can we all do in our roles, right? So I'll just take you on a very whirlwind tour of the whole area of the workplace design when it comes to 5 elements. Gender, and I know gender is very, very broad right now, but I will just stick to women. Disability, age, the mental health and psychological safety, and crime. So gender, we have talked about, how you can have glass panels, for example, to reduce sexual harassment, but there are so many things that one can do. So the office ambient temperature, it's proven in many places, especially many countries across the world, is just too cold for women. And you'll see women wearing sweaters even in hot countries because of the air conditioning. There are never enough washrooms. There's never enough storage for personal items. And all these little things make us realize that, actually the entire office, conventional office as we know it, has been designed for men. So it means really going back to the drawing board, and especially if you've got a large workforce, or you hope to have a large workforce of women, which I think you should, then it would be good to look at that right from scratch. Disability makes us think that people actually are, unable to work, but there have just been so many remarkable and inspiring examples of people who can. But it does mean a sensitivity and an empathy that runs across the organization in terms of accommodating them and giving them access. So whether that's wheelchair access, braille signage, ergonomic furniture, technology for the visually impaired, all of these are things that can be put in place. Now, the interesting thing about age is that we often think of our offices being full of younger people. But the fact is that we are all going to be living much longer and hope to live productive lives, and will actually be in offices for a lot longer. So what is it that can be done to make offices a place that actually promotes well-being for a longer lifespan? And the interesting thing that the research realized was that the older workers did not want to get differentiated from younger workers. They wanted similar things. And what was that? They wanted spaces to concentrate, where they could work privately, perhaps with less noise, with no mobile technology and phones, so just quieter zones. They wanted space when then they could leave the concentration and come and collaborate. So busier areas, meeting rooms, meeting spaces of all kinds. And interestingly, something that doesn't often show up most office designs is a place to contemplate, maybe a place to get connected with nature, maybe a library, maybe spaces where they can rejuvenate and take a break. So these were things that were actually good for workers of all ages, not just older workers. Mental health and psychological safety, of course, is a very vast area and a subject on its own. But it could range from anything from having choice and control over seating and lighting, the COVID protocols that we talked about, protection against sexual harassment that we talked about, and facilities to encourage physical well-being. And this is something that cuts through, especially after COVID, and I would hope that a lot of our colleagues in the community would pay attention to. And lastly, crime. I just wanted to talk to you very briefly about this whole field of design that exists that's called CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, which basically says that how through the design of the landscape, through the design of the built environment, can you actually reduce the incidence of crime and promote the quality of life, whether that's through controlling access to a particular institution through entry gates and exit gates, or through surveillance, which is naturally being able to have better lines of sight, better visibility, and of course, territorial reinforcement, which is about how you actually have a sense of ownership over the properties that you are in charge of. Thank you very much again. Thank you.